Dr Megan Woods in reply.
Thank you, Mr Speaker, and thank you to the Speaker who's just taken his seat for giving a far more constructive contribution on the bill than many of his colleagues did. It's much appreciated. Mr Speaker, I just want to run through the reasons why, the straw reasons why the opposition have put up of why they cannot support democracy and the restoration of democracy in the Canterbury reasons. First of all, the first argument is that it's unnecessary, that the current arrangements, the mixed model that we have in Canterbury is okay, that it is a return to democracy. Well, Mr Speaker, I've said it before and I'll say it again, you can't be a little bit pregnant. This is not a mixed model of democracy. This is the government appointing people to run Canterbury. And I do take note of the speech that the member who has just taken a seat, Ian McKelvey, gave, because he gave a speech that reached far beyond Canterbury. He talked about how this is a necessary and desirable tool to use outside of the specific conditions of Canterbury, which the government have continually used as their justification for the 2010 sacking of our regional council, the failure to return democracy in 2013, the failure to return democracy in 2016, and the failure to support the restoration of democracy. So the current model is not fit for purpose. No member who has taken to their feet on the other side has given a single justification for why it is that Canterbury should be treated differently than the rest of the country. The closest we got was the member who has just spoken, who basically made the case for rolling this out across the country rather than confining it between the Waitaki and the Clarence Rivers, that he seemed to see some things there. We also heard, and we heard it in the first contribution from a government member, and it was repeated, some concerns that iwi representation had been achieved through this bill, although the last speaker wasn't so keen on that himself, so maybe that's another split and division within the National Party. But what we did see and what we have consistently said is that yes, there could be something really good that has happened in Canterbury in terms of Ngāi Tahu's representation on the around the Environment Canterbury table. And we are up for that conversation at Select Committee. It is something that does need to be worked through with officials. It's something that some work needs to be put in and worked through. So to say that you cannot vote for this because it would do away with iwi representation is utter nonsense. That is not what we've said, and we've been very clear in that all the way through. Paul Foster-Bell then raised an argument that is often raised, that it is democratic, otherwise you're saying DHBs aren't democratic. Well, Mr Speaker, there are very different circumstances. First of all, a regional council is spending a locally collected rate and not centrally collected taxation. This is as simple of taxation without representation, a very fundamental of what we're meant to believe in as elected members, that we don't have people just appointed to spend money that is collected from citizens as a levy or a rate or a tax, that we do have something called elections that are usually quite useful. The other very different set of circumstances around the DHB is that that is a consistent system that is rolled out across the country. What we have here in Canterbury is a bespoke set of circumstances for Canterbury that no case has been made for, that the way in which we are represented has not been justified. So, Mr Speaker, that doesn't stack up. But then there was quite a lot of slippage with what the speakers were saying, because they started out saying that this change in this paper, in this bill, are not necessary because the mixed model is doing it. But then we heard speech after speech about how Canterbury democracy is just too risky. I think that's the minister's words, just too risky for Cantabrians to be allowed to get their sticky little fingers on, because they might muck it up. Because we have something very different there, that they have to protect the gains that were made. So what is it? Do we have a democratic system? Is that why you can't vote for, why the members opposite can't vote for the bill? Or do you want to continue an undemocratic form of government in Canterbury? The allegations of dysfunction are unfounded. The reasons why the council was originally sacked are not do not stack up. This is a chance for people for elected members of Parliament to vote for the restoration of democracy to the region of Canterbury, and I encourage Canterbury members around this House to vote for their region and not for their party. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.